Hey everyone, I'm Anthony Gethers.
And I'm Greg Weiss.
And we are good dudes with bad hearts.
No, literally.
Our hearts are broken.
I have heart failure.
And I have a transplant.
We never thought we'd have heart problems.
But we do.
And they're real.
And they suck. And that's why we're here.
To talk to you about heart failure,
heart attacks, and everything that comes with these conditions.
Each week we will bring you an episode featuring guests with heart issues.
We're talking about doctors and health professionals.
And we're talking about everyday people.
Like you and I. Together, we'll share useful information.
Providing useful lifestyle tips.
And how to prepare heart-healthy meals.
We'll tell our stories and hopefully make your hearts
better.
Welcome to Change of Heart.
Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of Change of Heart podcast, Good Dudes with Bad Hearts. I'm your host, Anthony Gethers, and I'm with my co-host,
Greg Weiss.
That's right. And Greg, tell me what's happening today.
Well, today we have an interview with author of The Unlikely Candidate, Kelvin Smith. It's an amazing journey of a heart transplant patient. And Kelvin has a really interesting story about his life as being an athlete and also eventually a heart transplant recipient. And we're going to talk today about how he, along his journey, suffered and fought off with his internal strength and his fortitude, and eventually sought help to feel these symptoms that he was having. And I'll let Kelvin start from let's start from the beginning.
All right, Kelvin Smith. Let's take a round of applause for Kelvin.
Thanks.
Great to have you here, and it's he is an unlikely candidate, and let's start from the beginning.
Okay. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks. I know that we have a rookie. Here. Anthony and Greg. I know you're a veteran, being a heart transplant recipient, and we do want the rookie to stay a rookie because
yes,
you want to keep your own organs as long as you can.
As do I.
Yeah. So hey.
I heard he was a rookie before he even admitted himself, and we were talking and we were discussing things, and he was in Europe and he came back from Europe, and we're talking, and I heard this cough, and I'm like, get that checked, and his man pride kicked in, and he's like, I'm okay.
I thought I could handle that by myself. I thought I'd be totally fine. I was an idiot.
That's most men.
Tired from touring and rock star life, and Europe was great. And I'm like, 2 days later, he's calling me and he's got this cough. And I'm like, get this checked out.
Yep.
He's like, yeah, I'll be okay. And 4 days later, it's I'm admitting myself into an ER.
Yeah, I was in the ER after that.
Yeah, I put 40 pounds of water weight on.
Yes.
I'll be
I
fine.
was looking pretty. All right, so let's get back to Kelvin.
He is our rookie.
Yeah. And like I said, we're going to keep him that way. So as far as my story, mine goes back to when I can remember, was 1998, and I can remember going to visit a friend of mine, Seth Joyner from Spring Valley, actually, was playing for the Denver Broncos. And so I went out there to visit him, and all of a sudden, I just couldn't breathe. Of course, I thought it was maybe the altitude. I think in the book I thought it was even the chicken wings. Maybe I had too many chicken wings or something. I just all of a sudden just couldn't breathe. When I got back home, I went to my primary care. My primary care decided that it was time for me to go see, a cardiologist. Went to the cardiologist. The cardiologist went through a battery of tests, and he said, well, you know what? You may have a blocked artery. So end up going to Hackensack Medical Center, and come to find out that the test. They said I had a blocked artery, but coming to find out it was a false positive test. So now it's still the same symptom, shortness of breath. Didn't have a cough of any or anything yet, and it was concerning because, I had a car wash over in Havershort at one point, and I can remember bending down to try to put Armor All to help the guys put Armor All on the tires, and it just felt like somebody was just literally choking me. It was almost like come to find out, I think my liver or was enlarged, and because it was being starved, I learned this later that it was being starved of, let's say, blood flow. Uh, but the bottom line was, that there was something wrong with my heart. Didn't find this out until I left Rockland County, and then they ended up in Columbia Presbyterian. The doctor, they started doing battery tests, and they still couldn't really figure it out, but they knew that it was the heart. Eventually, in 2003, I was still having episodes. So we're going from 98 to 2003. I'm still going through episodes. I'm on a tread. I'm walking, but I'm right. So they end up being a pacemaker. So I'm thinking, okay, pacemaker, that's pretty intrusive. So that should fix my problem. That didn't fix the problem.
So how long did you have between the pacemaker and your next incident?
Less than a year. I was at the water company where, that was my primary job. Worked at the water company. I was a shift operator at that time, and I was on shift by myself, and I just felt like really, really like out of shape. I'm just running around the water plant, just doing my testing and all. And I remember running up the stairs, and the next thing I knew, I was at the bottom of the stairs, upside down, and I noticed that my leg was broken, so it was hanging off. So really, what happened was I went into an arrhythmia. So my heart just went into a holding pattern, and somehow I was able to crawl up, call 911, and get to the emergency room and all. So that's when they upgraded me to a defibrillator, Greg, which I know we've all heard of defibrillators. So really, truthfully, I should have had that from the beginning. I don't know why. I don't know if it was an insurance thing. Why they don't give you a defibrillator from the beginning, which also serves as a pacemaker. But the defibrillator, which they said at some point is going to go off, and it's not going to be fun. And that scared the daylights out of me. What do you mean? It's going to feel like a horse kick in your chest.
Well, take it back to where you said that when you were at the job and you had the heart, so your heart had a problem, you were on the staircase. Which was more painful, the breaking of the leg or the actual heart attack that you might have had in the process? Because it sounds like one might have superseded the other. You said that you noticed that your leg was broken, and like which one was much more painful? Sounds like the heart attack obviously dominated the leg break at that point.
I think the leg. Due to nerves and all, and it's literally almost hanging at a 45-degree angle. So now think of it. I know you guys are big, strong guys, and dragging yourself up and that leg dangling, and every time it dangles, the nerves. It's just the pain was just unbelievable.
How much did you weigh at that time?
The heart generally you don't feel. You feel the leg.
Right. At that time, probably about 205, 210, 205.
So you were dragging 205 pounds, trying to get 205 pounds up the
Thankfully,
stairs.
I was a gym rat, so I was able to do that. And you can do
those push-ups, all those pull-ups.
And you can do whatever you really, like they say that when somebody's stuck under a car, you just get strength from somewhere else. And so maybe that helped as well. But so I was able to pull myself up, call 911. And like you asked me, it was the leg. It was putting that back in place. The leg was just straight excruciating. Because like Greg said, the heart, I didn't feel it because I went into the holding pattern. And the next thing I knew, I felt like I didn't have a heart problem at that time.
It knocks you out, the defibrillator.
Straight ridiculously knocks you out. And what
Doesn't
is
even tell you or prepare you as to what that knockout really is.
No.
I had actually two. I had my first one lasted 11 years without going off, and I never really had that issue. And they left my wire in and replaced the battery on when the battery had died. And on that second battery was when I had a couple events that that's how you know, like, something happened. And you end up you bring yourself back into ER or your cardiologist, and they can actually tell you when, where, and how hard your event was. And
Yes.
you're there and you're in disbelief because they're pulling out like a ticker tape, like an old time stock reader, and they're going, oh, okay, on this date at this time, ooh, you almost had it, you almost bought the big one. And you're just in disbelief that you're even there, let alone talking about it in past tense.
You're right.
But you don't feel good after one of these things.
Okay. So you said that they should have actually given you the defibrillator first.
That's how I felt. That's how I felt because, to my understanding, the pacemaker and the defibrillator does the same thing, except that the defibrillator will serve as like a cardio version, like those paddles that, when they say clear, that's like something internal in your body. That's why they call it your walking ICU, because, if the pacemaker is supposed to pace your heart and the defibrillator does the same thing, except for it can shock you back into your rhythm. I just didn't understand why you don't just go straight to the defibrillator. Greg, you want to share?
I'm going to unanswer this question and tell you that the exact opposite happened to me. Is I got the defibrillator and I didn't get a pacemaker. And at least that's the way it was explained to me, that because of the condition that you're in at that time, and we probably had our procedures close in time. My defibrillator was put in me in 2004. And I didn't get the upgrade of a pacemaker literally until 2017.
Wow.
So all I had was, at least to my knowledge, a defibrillator, and I was medicated. And from what I understood, that the pacemaker would actually regulate, part of your heartbeat, so you didn't actually go into, AFib. And I didn't, until the second time, and my condition got worse. But that's when the replacement, when they replaced the wire, they replaced the leads. That was I'm not going to go into my story, but that was an 8-hour surgery to remove the wire and replace it after 13 years of having the same wire, which they told me was exposed, shocking the lining of my heart and ready to break. So,
Wow.
Oh, I don't know.
All right. So at one point we were talking, you mentioned at some point in our past interview that you went to the gym and you had an experience that was very traumatic, as far as your defibrillator doing a clear poof and then throwing you off the treadmill.
Yes. So, okay. So we can go right into that because, that's 2004. So they were just minor, let's say, I'd say episodes, not, episodes, let's say gout, let's say, something else. I don't know if did I have a hip thing? There were like little things leading up to that particular moment that you speak of, Anthony, that I was in the gym again, because I'm feeling like a, I don't know, just a deadbeat, like somebody that's used to going to the gym at least 4 or 5 times a week, doing cardio. So now I'm feeling, let me get on the treadmill. Let me start off slow because now And like they always say, it's much easier for the athlete to fall out of shape than it is for the non-athlete. So now I want to try to get back some type of cardio. I got on the I got on the elliptical, and it had to be maybe 90 seconds. And I started to feel weird, and I wasn't going fast. I was not going fast at all. And then, just like the doctor explained, boom, that horse kick, and it just knocked me almost down to my knees.
Whoa.
And then, yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's a
And
serious
then right
boom.
behind, boom. So it hit me twice, and I sat on the floor in the side of the gym. It didn't even matter who saw me at that point. I just knew that that pain was severe, and I just didn't want it to happen again. I needed to sit my butt down and I just prayed. It didn't. I went to the church when I was able to get up. Well, first the little old ladies, I
Yeah,
remember.
you didn't have the anyone come to you and approach you.
Yeah, they were super cute. They said, "Excuse me, Sonny, are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, it's just my my defibrillator firing off." So I just said that as a matter of fact. They were like, "Your defibrillator." And so from there, I went down to the St. Peter's Church outside, and I just prayed to God to say, "Whatever your plan is, if it's to take me out, just take me out. Just don't take me out like that. I don't want to feel that pain ever again." You know, that was in November of 2007. So now after that, Greg and Anthony, now all of a sudden, and you're right though, Greg, that ticker tape, that's the perfect way to explain it. When I went to the pacemaker doctor, and he's like, wow. He's hitting me with a bunch of wows because he could see episodes or near episodes.
He saw the 4 events you ignored.
Right. He can literally tell you.
It sounds like he could have given you stock tips.
Right.
It basically, it
You
was
should have
when
bought. You should have bought
your
Tesla.
stock was going to crash.
Yeah.
Something I'd like to address as a side issue is, and I had just said it, but I'm going to go back to it. How many times did you think something was coming on and you just put it off? That you knew something was coming up in a week. You had an event. You had a project that was due. You had something at your job that was pending. And you just said to yourself, I just got to get through this. I need to get past this, and then I know I can relax and feel better. And that doesn't happen. Sometimes we call that on this show man pride, from a previous guest, Randall, and how man pride can not help you be better because you feel obligated. And a lot of this you talk about in your book. About certain events. And I read your book from a transplant perspective, of course, and all I saw was myself and all these events that were like, well, I got to get on with my life. I got to get on with my life. I got to get on with my life. And the next thing you know, boom, your defibrillator goes off. Boom, I had a heart attack. Boom, I need more serious care than what's happening in my day-to-day routine. And if you could talk about that, I know it's in the book, and I encourage everybody to get the book, whether you had a transplant or you didn't have a transplant. There's a lot of lessons that Kelvin discusses that everybody should listen to, because it's like a guidebook, even though it was his events. But these things happen and could happen to anybody, especially if you've been notified that you have some kind of heart disease or failure pending.
That's true. No, Greg, you're perfectly right. That, putting off things because all you want to do, right, is to get better, right? And like the doctor probably, told you, you don't even realize how sick, you really, well, he said were.
Agreed. I still hear it.
You don't even know how sick you really, really were. Yeah. And I can remember, again, with the wife bringing home the groceries and I want to help her. And I remember she wanted to move this couch. I'm like, like everything was just too it was just too much. And I just felt, felt like less than a man, to be honest with you. My son, I think I wrote about my son that just got drafted by the Dolphins. It's supposed to be this joyous time, right? I'm down at South Beach, now we all know what South Beach is about. I can't even enjoy it. I'm stuck in a room with, one of my good friends, Drew. We're stuck in a room and I'm just coming to visit my son, who's now an NFL player. I couldn't even enjoy it because I'm so talk about congestion.
It
was
ties
just,
into the air conditioning.
oh my God. I just couldn't
breathe cold air.
That's it. And all you do is for it to go away. I speak of riding across that Bear Mountain Bridge and I can feel an episode coming on,
Oh, wait, before you go to the Bear Mountain Bridge, talk about how your son got signed. So
Yes.
here you are, you're congested in the hotel. Did your family members have an idea what was going on with you?
Yeah, they did, and my wife, she'll say that I kept a lot to myself, and that's again when you talk about man pride, you just you literally want to wake up one day and not feel like you felt the day before. You just want to wake up and like, hey, babe, I feel better. What do you want to do today? Do you want to move that couch? We can move it upstairs. Whatever you want to do. You're praying on that. You're praying on that that yesterday was a dream. And you're just trying to get through it. But, that obviously wasn't the, that wasn't the deal. But that shaking off episodes, and I don't know if it was actually shaking it off, but I'm thinking I'm shaking it off because I feel like I'm about to faint. Driving over that bridge, I feel like I'm about to faint. So you're shaking it off and you're getting on the other side to say, woof, I dodged that one. I didn't go over
Okay,
the
but
bridge.
speaking of the anxiety of driving across a bridge, did it start literally from afar when you saw the bridge off in the distance? Was that
Maybe.
kind of a thing or is it literally as you're getting past the toll and you're getting onto the bridge? And then
It
you
might have
get
been. It
anxiety?
might have been anxiety, and probably a mixture, right? Probably a mixture.
Mixture. It
Right.
is the mixture.
Right.
It's all building up on you, and it's not that I can't cross a bridge. It's this building. There's this aggravation that's starting, and your mind starts wondering what's going on. Am I going to pull over? I'm not going to pull over. I'm just going to keep driving. Whatever it is, it's going away.
Right.
And you, as it grows in you, you're looking, and now you're literally gripping your steering wheel at 10 and 2.
Absolutely.
And every inch of your car down the road is, am I going to feel better in a quarter mile?
That's a good way to put it.
I'm not putting words in your mouth. I mean, these things have happened to me, and you ask yourself, is it my medication? Am I having a side effect? Am I having a heart attack? And what is going on with me that I'm not normal right now? And in 10 minutes, it all goes away, and now you want to forget it ever happened. And that's one of the things that I've just been I always recollect on is as much as I've gone through, I want to forget every minute of it. And at the same time, I'm brought back into it. And
you mean by way of this podcast?
I'm not going to thank Anthony for this, but
dragging you back into this podcast.
But I realize that if I don't live with it, it's gonna hurt me somewhere down the line. And that I have to keep present of it, about where I've been, about where I'm going, about how I got here. And one of the things about doing this podcast is it's really keeping me in check on a lot of things I really don't want to necessarily have to be concerned with. And I just wanted to go on going, hey, I want my life back. I want to just pick up wherever it was I took off. And I just want to be the old happy me. And like you said, every time I show up and they look at me and they go, you don't realize how sick you are. And I go, but I don't feel it.
Right.
I don't feel it. And it's these people that we have on these transplant teams are they're gifts from God.
Absolutely.
They really are, because their commitment to your health is incredible. This is one of the things I asked my team, Kelvin, and I'm sure if you asked your team, you would get the same answer. Is I know that when I started, I had a literally a brand new transplant coordinator. And she's amazing, and she's looking for perfect numbers all the time. And I don't even know what they are. I don't even know how to get there.
Right.
But I was one of her first 10 patients, and now I know 3 weeks will be 3 years. And now she has over 300 cases to follow in this time. And it's like the work they do is so amazing, and they're still concerned about you.
Yeah.
And even though the further out you get, and you're 10 years further than me, is they have to be on 1,000 cases like you now down the road.
Right. So you figure the interview process, right? The interview process, which started probably in 2004, as far as once that doctor said to me, and that's the doctor that finally got it to where he knew that it was restrictive cardiomyopathy, the hardening of the thickening of the heart muscle. Now you need to see, are you eligible to get on that transplant list? The same list that I shed tears over once he said, one day you're going to have to get a heart transplant. To get any type of normalcy in your life, you're going to have to get a heart transplant. So the interview process that you have to go through, and then to hear of whoever's in charge say, no, he's not sick enough. For me, I'm confused now.
Someone actually told you that they actually said to you that you're not sick enough to get a heart transplant.
100%. Meanwhile, I'm fainting. I'm falling out. Defibrillators going off and all.
Yeah, but how do they determine that? Like, how do you look at someone and
A
go?
lot of that has changed. A lot.
Well, let me just finish my point first. So, do you have to literally, practically be dead, where they finally say to you, "Oh, you know something? He's one breath shy of like not living. So now we can give him a new heart."
Right. He just has to get down to a half a breath.
It's also luck, because if you're not at that point, either in a doctor's office or in a hospital, you are SOL. And
is it luck or is it political sometimes, Greg?
No, I don't think it's political, because these people want the best for everybody. But what happens a lot of times is you're either not at a location, you're not in a doctor's office, you're on a train commuting, you're in your car on a road trip, you're on a business trip. The last place you are is near medical help. And depending upon the severity of your incident is what's going to determine your outcome. I was lucky enough to live near a hospital. I was lucky enough to live near an urgent care. I was lucky enough to have insurance. Kelvin will tell you, because when Kelvin got admitted, there were only 3 stages of acceptance for a transplant. There was you're going to die right now, you're going to die in a month, or if we medicate you, you're not going to die. And those were the 3 levels. It was a 1A, a 1B, and a 2.
Right.
And back then, that's all it was. And 10 years later, 15 years later, when I was in this situation, the first problem I had was that my heart wasn't even going to make surgery to get a heart pump, let alone talk about a transplant. And what had happened, and I'm sure it's pretty similar, you're sitting, because in your book, you talk about literally a 3-month adventure, which when I was in, I knew people that were in this situation. In my case, I was fortunate enough to get a LVAD, or a heart pump, in between dying and getting a transplant. So to get an LVAD, I'm sure it's similar in your case. Every day there were a different group of doctors asking you questions, and they are measuring your positive outlook on life.
Mhm.
And they want to
Mhm.
know that, are you psychologically capable of accepting this gift? And in my case, before even the transplant, it was the heart pump. And these people are coming in and they're going, "Hi, I'm Dr. So-and-so." And I go, "You don't look like you touch patients. What do you do?" "Oh, I'm evaluating your blah, 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 blah. And I'm a specialist in this field." And that's when you realize that now you're the guinea pig in the cage.
Oh,
Mhm.
oh,
You know,
yeah.
I know, and but you were there longer than I was, and my problem was, and I'll use your term, my heart pickled to a point where I didn't even have enough platelets to survive the pump surgery. They had to put a first pump in me to get me into surgery to get another pump.
Mm.
You say your heart pickled. Yes. Well, let me ask you this. Sorry to interrupt you, Craig. So you said your heart pickled. Like, where
Well,
did you go
Kelvin
with that
said
term?
that, and I
Kelvin,
Did I say pickle? Did I?
pickled. You could have said raisins. You could have said crumbled.
he said pickled because
Pickled.
the heart was literally it was literally calcifying itself,
Wow.
so it couldn't pump.
Mm.
And
Becoming
you
brittle.
were
Brittle.
lucky enough after all the events that I read about, that your doctor made the call to get you admitted.
Right.
And not only admitted, you got admitted into the right place at the right time with the right bunch of specialists
Right.
that were going to
Right.
be able to monitor you in-house
Mhm.
for up to 90 days.
Right. 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 Right.
I want
Right.
I want you to talk about this when you got admitted, and it was still winter,
Yeah.
and you looked out your hospital window,
Mhm.
and they had mentioned how beautiful the garden was going to be in the spring. Tell me how you felt.
Which I thought was weird, because I was, I was at, if I remember correctly, 5 Gardens South. That means that, you were able to look out your window at the garden, but there was probably about a foot of snow when I came in. So this whole Garden South, I couldn't fathom like what a garden looked
They were
like.
letting you know that you're going to be in for a long ride.
Yeah. So, and at the time, you have no clue. You don't know. Yeah, you don't know. Going in, and don't forget when they say that you're sick, right? They're like, and then you hear the whispers, and yeah, what are they talking about? So they're really talking about like this guy's is pretty bad. But Greg, as you know, when you start to see things, when you physically start to see things, it's one thing to feel some stuff, but when you start to see all of a sudden these skinny ankles all of a sudden are huge. I'm like, wow, this is the fluid that they talk about. Yeah. So now,
I call them Fred Flintstone feet,
oh my God.
or honey. Well, in my case, I call them the honey boo, the honey boo feet. When I put on the waterway.
It's because, okay, as we know, if we go that the infamous clearing your throat, clearing your throat. If you're consistently doing that, and you're a heart patient, a lot of that has to do with that fluid that's backed up. A lot of that has to do with, okay, your heart is not pumping properly. Now all of a sudden, that fluid, if you're on your feet for too long, now your feet are swelling. So when I'm in Miami, South Beach, everybody's hanging, but I'm in the hotel room with my feet elevated because it's hot out. I don't want to go out and look like sausage feet, you know, out there with my kid. So, so there's a lot. But come January, again, come January is when my feet started to swell a lot. I talked about working the most overtime at my job. I just didn't. I'm trying to take my mind off of being.
Man pride.
Yeah, I'm just trying to take my mind
It is
off of
man
it.
pride.
They're saying that there's nothing that we can do right now because you just got to go through it. You just got to go through it.
But even with medication, you couldn't actually drain the fluid.
They said to me, there's a part, I can't remember right now, but maybe it's a couple years before that. They said by lessening your salt intake, that would be better for you. I cut salt totally out. I started to lose weight at a rapid pace. Now the cramps that started to
Which
come
we all know
with
is not the best for you.
no, because there's a balance. This is the whole sodium,
Exactly.
potassium. There's a balance. But I'm thinking if I can stop taking salt, right, then I can fix this heart. I can fix the heart myself. If I could just cut out salt, I'm making dinner for the wife and my daughter. I'm cooking theirs regular because they have regular hearts, but I'm not using any salt. That didn't work.
But you're also treating it as if you're changing your air filter in your car,
Right.
which of course is not the reality.
Right. Because, so I give up. I know I'm super sick. Okay. But man pride says that, well, maybe I can fix it. So, Greg,
Yes.
right? So going in, right.
That's
Going
a whole
into
other.
January,
I have a whole show to talk about this.
I'm sure. going into January is when it really started to get bad. And I can remember coming up those stairs at the job, and the guy who brought me into to the water department in 1988, was my boss. And I can remember him always saying, "You okay? You okay, man?" As I'm walking up those stairs, those dreaded stairs, because I can't breathe, he's saying, "You okay?" So that October prior, he died of cancer, right? I forgot which cancer, but it
The
was
guy that was asking you if you're okay. Went
yeah.
first.
He was asking me, and he was saying, what is a CAT scan like? Because I'm super claustrophobic, so I'm explaining to him and all, and he ended up passing away quickly,
It sounds like he let man pride get in the way of his situation.
which we
He's
do.
asking you about it.
Which we do.
Yeah.
But I remember him. Yeah, I remember coaching him up on CAT scans and all that stuff. And before you know it, he didn't have a chance nor an option because he had cancer. So come January of 2008, now I'm getting bad. Go to February, that game, the Giants versus the Patriots, and I can remember now I'm relegated to sleeping downstairs because of the congestion. It's just I'm keeping everybody up, I feel. So I sleep downstairs. I go upstairs. My wife allowed me to sleep in the bed. She slept downstairs that night. And I defibrillator fired. The ticker tape says that it fired numerous times. And I was on the way out. The doctor still doesn't know how I got up. But, woke up incontinent, everything. I was just done. I just knew it was over. And I said, look, told the wife, I said, we got to go. And of course, man pride and stupidity, I had to watch the game. I had to watch the Giants.
You told your wife to go, and therefore you had to watch the game.
Yeah, well, we got to watch the Giants and the Patriots. Super Bowl Sunday. I can't, just hold on a second.
So let me get this right. She said to you, look, honey, you got to get out of here. There's some serious crap happening. But before you go,
I got to make my special hot wings, and we'll go in the morning. Dumb.
It's like
Damn.
talking about like adding fuel to the fire.
Oh my God. Yeah, but you know what? I said, hey, if I'm going out, this is how I'm going out. I'm going out with these wings.
Mm-hmm. I would tell you that in 2004, when I was undiagnosed, unmedicated, untreated, living on man pride, being a performer, that I knew that if I was going to go out, I want to go out literally on stage. Mm-hmm. And I have to play. I gotta, be around my community, and regardless of which, music's gonna heal me, and I'm gonna go do this. And regardless of how I felt, and I was having heartburn that was like, I didn't know heartburn meant heart attack. Mm. And at that point of my failure. But yeah, I mean, should I go get help? Sure. I got a gig tonight. It doesn't matter. I actually had 2 gigs that night and played 6 sets in heart failure. And can I make it on the field? Yeah. Can I be productive? Yeah. Can I help win the game? Yeah. And at the end of it, I'm not going to make the next game. And so I understand what you're saying. Moving along, talking about all these things, let's talk about the day you got admitted and how things changed into this. You know what I'm going to call it? I'm going to call it the point of time that didn't exist. That you're in this suspended animation of being what was going to be a long-term hospital patient. I mean, talk about how like your schedule changed. Talk about how, your routine went from you have coworkers, you have a job, to hello, nurse. What are we doing today? Why am I up at 5 a.m. getting weighed? Why is my food being limited to this crap I don't want to eat? What is happening to me? And why is nothing going on?
Hurry up and wait.
Hurry up and wait.
Hurry up and wait. Hurry up and wait. That's going into that emergency room, because went into the emergency room, and I think I might have gave the analogy of like a Saigon type, no disrespect to that, but it was just crazy. I don't know if it was a bad night or what, but it was just ridiculous. Now you got to wait for a bed, right? Because the doctor said you're not leaving here until a couple of things happen. The best thing is to get a heart transplant, right? So once you get out of there, out of the emergency room, and you get upstairs, so there's a sense of relief there, right? But you also know that you're probably gonna be there a while, right? So the bells and the whistles, the ding dong, ding 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 ding, is just it's just nerve wracking. But this is your new life. That's my new life.
How do you adjust to that psychologically? Your new life.
For me, I eventually put myself.
I like a great one. Great one.
Does Greg need to go? For me, I've never been to prison, but I always heard of the prisoners talking about you got to put yourself out of the prison, right? So I just put myself outside, and people, and I lived vicariously through the people that were coming to see me. If they were talking about, about this guy, he's still coaching, or about this person doing this, then, I would just literally get on their level and try to think about what their lives were, because my life was, it was just daily bells and whistles, getting pricked and stuck and all these things, and listening to the nurses. The vast majority were super, super sensitive to sick boy, let's say, but some of them, they would just talk about their lives and what they did last night, and not that their lives should change, but some of them were a little insensitive. I think I spoke about the lady who, those hills coming down the hallway at 5 a.m. and you're trying all you can to get some sleep, and then she comes in and just, there's no warning, just flick the light on, and she's got the perfume on. Wow. Like she just came from the club. So, but that's her life, But to her, I felt I was just sick boy, But the vast majority were good. But those bells and whistles, man. And don't forget, I went in at 205 pounds. Within less than 2 days, I was 165 pounds, I think, 163.
Wait, say it again. So you went in at 205.
205 pounds, and in less than 2 days, I dropped my weight down to 163. That's how much congestion. That's how much fluid. That's how much stuff was on my heart. That's why. And guess what? All of a sudden, there's no coughing. There's no, because everything was just being totally condensed to just inside my chest. And now all of a sudden, I felt better.
So take it back to where you were when you said you felt like you were in prison.
So, like some of the nurses, most of the nurses, excuse me, were like really like super professional, um, you know, sympathetic to, what you're going through and all. Then there was a couple that, talk about the club, and they're right outside the door. They're talking about things that, they actually put me in the club, because now I'm laying there for a while, and it's interesting to me. But I'm just like, wow, this is my nurse. Uh, but it was still, again, you asked.
Did you think it was a bit selfish that they were talking about that in front of you, knowing that you're laying there and there's nothing you can possibly do in your life? You're kind of stuck there.
Yeah, because I guess you can't expect, everyone to be on their A game. I mean, that's their profession, and probably they should. Their bedside manner should be, always super good. This is what they do, and I say the 90% of them, that's what they were really, really good at it.
Sometimes
But
it's procedure over patient.
yeah, 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 yeah. And again, they're coming in there to do their 12 hours. I get that. I'm probably going to be there tomorrow if I'm lucky. Uh, so I had fun with it. There were some, I have still, I'm sure you do too, Greg, that we have
Yeah.
friends. You've developed like
Oh,
lifelong friends behind this,
Mhm.
whether we Facebook friends or, the
Mhm.
one guy who was a phlebotomist or whatever. He was like really, really good with me explaining this whole heart transplant thing from people that he knew that came in that had heart transplants. And he
Mhm.
recommended that I get into these support groups.
Mhm.
Because I really didn't want to speak to anyone in a group setting. The support groups changed my entire outlook on
So
the
that
whole
was like
thing.
the Alcoholics Anonymous for people with heart
Yeah,
issues.
people that breathe like you, bleed like you.
Mhm.
These are people. The stories are real. Um, Greg, you're saying what, about 3 years ago? So I'm in the support groups, and
Are you
again,
still?
I'm 100.
Are you still in
Huh?
support groups? Are you still in support groups?
I haven't, but that's something that, like, if someone calls me to speak or to share, I'm not
Mhm.
I'm definitely not oblivious to going back. In
Mhm.
fact, that's not a bad idea. I probably need to.
I would go with you if
Yeah.
you invited me.
Okay, let's put
I
that on
would
the
do that.
let's
I
put
would
that on
do that.
the
And I'm not
calendar.
a group person. I'm a bass player. I'm a lone wolf.
We're
You
lone
know,
wolves, bass players.
like
We don't like
Vasco da
people.
Gama looking
Yeah.
for the tip of the earth.
Yep.
Yeah,
You know.
nah. Let's think that one. Let's think about that one, Greg. Um, but my wife, to sit there, because I'm doing all the research, and as you guys know, Google and all sometimes is really not your best friend.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because if that's the case, then we should have been dead. Going off of what they say. I guess they got to put a number on it, and that's where your average comes in. Whatever. But support groups, you look across the group, and to see this man, muscular guy and all, and he says that he had a heart transplant 2 years ago. Now at this point, I can't even fathom having muscles again, because I'm 163 pounds. I feel weak. I can't see getting strong. I feel like I'm, maybe if I'm lucky, get a heart and be able to go through life for a while. But I don't feel like I'll ever be the strong me ever again. So when he spoke, and I really listened, and that made me raise my hand to say, "Hey, wait a minute. You said you had a heart transplant 2 years ago?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Did you look like that?" He said, "No, I was probably looking like you." I said, "So you're saying there's a possibility that I can get back to me?" He said, "Absolutely, you will. Absolutely." That changed my whole thought process, that, a heart could just get us back to some form of a baseline.
Well, you would think so because it's a muscle. I mean, the heart is a muscle, and the fact that you are muscular, that you're muscular, that if the muscle will get better and improve, you too will then get muscles or get your muscles back at least. Or
So
some
it's the
someone said
difference
that.
between all the other organs and of a transplant, whether it's liver, or kidney, or lungs, and the heart, because the heart is the only one that's a muscle, and all the other organs are tissue, and you get one shot at that.
Right. Right. And so, Anthony, you figure with all the knowledge that you're gaining now, right? This is knowledge that I didn't have. This is knowledge I don't know if Greg had it. Maybe he did, but I don't know
No.
these things. I'm listening
No.
to people who are who've been in it now. These support groups, and I'm just listening, and I'm listening. I'm listening to a man and his significant other. Just he's quoting Bible scriptures and all, and he was the most negative person ever about transplants. He was just so super negative, and I just couldn't understand. Like, man, we're all in this together. Why are you so negative? And just lo and behold, when he did get the call, his body didn't take. His body
Wow.
didn't take. Now you can take what you need out of that, but I think going forward, like being positive, having a positive outlook, that's just going to breed, I think, the success of the transplant. That's just my opinion, though. So
His heart didn't take, but he lived.
no,
Oh,
the lady,
Ooh.
that his significant other came back to a support group.
So he had like an antibody issue or something.
It was almost like it was too. It was almost like it was too big. It was almost like it was too big, which surprised everyone because
Can you make, this might be a little bit of an odd question now, because obviously I'm looking at this. If let's say a transplant, I'll just give you a quick example here. Let's say a transplant fails within the first person comes in there, and like you mentioned, the person had a very negative outlook on life, and obviously the heart didn't work out well for him, so he ended up dying. So I also wonder now, Greg, you can tell me, or you can tell me, Kelvin, can they take the heart back? I mean, I don't know if that's ever happened, or
You
that's
want
something that
to hear the fast answer? The fast answer is they can if they want to.
they prep two people. They prep two people when you go in. That's for sure.
Wow.
They prep two people.
A person A and person B. So, oh wow. So
Yeah,
Well,
if
I
it
never
fails,
saw the B person. Well,
okay.
and I was going to ask you this is because you were in the hospital when they basically walked in the door and said, your heart is here. You're getting a transplant. You were in the hospital. And just in my case, I had my heart pump for 11 months. And I was getting back into a lifestyle, but I'm wearing a bag of batteries and I'm plugging in at night. And, they're watching my INR. So my heart pump doesn't, rust out or my blood get too thin or too thick and clog. And you take every phone call, you take every spam call, you take every sales call because you don't know who's calling you from where. And I did get that call, and the call came at like 8:30 in the morning, and it was just my office, and I was going, is this it? And they're like, yes, this is your call, and all of a sudden it was like it was NFL kickoff. All of a sudden it was like game on, but you were in there already. You already had the waiting for nothing experience. And when it kicked in, what was that like? It went from, well, something's going to happen someday. They didn't say, well, in a week, get ready for this. It was, you're going in 10 hours.
You're talking about, if I'm not mistaken, that might be chapter 16, the call, because that's a big one. That's that's a big one.
Because you were in the hospital.
Yes.
You were in the hospital, and like you got the call, but you were lucky enough to actually be there.
Yeah. So you have around 5 or 6 o'clock, the doctors come and they do their rounds for the evening. my doctor who came in, she checked me and everything, and she didn't say anything about anything. It's just a regular night before she got off work, come check her patients. And I remember when she left, I took a phone call from my one of my coworkers actually, and just talking about craziness. The nurse came in and she said, "Your doctor's trying to get a hold of you." And I was like, "My doctor was just here." She said, "I don't know, but she's trying to get a hold of you now." And so I hung up with my coworker. So she called and she says, "Kelvin, just to let you know, when I walked in your room, I knew, but we have a heart for you." I'm like, "What? Well, you were just here. You were just here. Like you could have
That's
maybe
amazing.
tipped me off, you know?"
Right.
So now
No,
she's like,
I want to hear this.
she's like, "Are you okay?" She's like, "You okay?" It's been 3 months, right?
Mhm.
Now the birds are chirping. Now the garden is actually the garden. And she's like, "Yeah, this should be a happy time for you." She said, start making your phone calls, And I'm like, "Okay." And eventually when you hang up, now you got to like really go through this. You have to, wow, it's game on, as you said. And I remember going in the bathroom before I even called the wife. I went in the bathroom and just tears started rolling down my face because now something different is getting ready to take place in my life.
Mhm.
Something incredibly different is going to take place. And I remember, calling the wife, and I wrote that she was in a beauty salon. I said, "Look, I'm going to tell you something, but you got to take it easy, keep calm, don't just relax." I said, "The heart got the call." So of course she screams, and everybody in the beauty salon is like, "Oh, what the hell, yeah?"
Oh, yeah.
So it's a happy time. So now you go from 6:30 at night. Now you're starting to get prepped at 9:30. They finally take you down about midnight, and then the surgery is at about 3. My surgery was 3 to 7, so it was 4 hours. And they try to keep you asleep.
You're
Yeah.
lucky.
Yeah.
You were
Wow.
lucky.
So now speaking of the surgery and the transplant, did you know where it came from? I mean, do they do a whole introduction saying to you, this person was this
Not at that time.
No.
not at
No,
that
no.
Not
time?
at that time.
All right.
Because it's
So-
not in you, and they don't know until it's over.
Oh,
Yeah.
they don't know until it's over.
I know
Well, they
eventually.
know who
Right.
they've known for days. They've been
Right.
looking for this for you for weeks and maybe months.
Mhm.
One of the things I'll interject with was Kelvin's condition might not have been optimal to get surgery, and they might have passed on 3 or 4
There were
potential donors
There were calls.
because he might not have been able to actually survive the surgery if they had gotten him a heart. At least in my case, that's why I had the heart pump for at least for 11 months, because I wasn't going to be able to survive the pump surgery, let alone a transplant surgery. And just getting back to what Kelvin said before was that they watch you every minute, every heart pumping of this new heart. And what happens is when they're looking for infection and rejection, they're on it. I mean, they start hitting you with steroids. Now, from what I read in the book, Kelvin had no infection, no rejection. Is that true?
That is certainly true. Definitely true.
Okay, I'll say it again. Lucky.
Yeah.
Lucky.
Yeah.
What are the chances of Greg? Maybe you can assist Greg. What are the chances of having an infection with heart transplants?
Very high.
Very high, meaning.
They're looking for it because they just put mismatched DNA into your body that begins instantly rejecting your body as the host, and your body starts rejecting it as the recipient, and as the donor organ. And in my case, when I woke up the next day, I was notified that I did have both a mild infection and some rejection. And that's when the tables change, and now they hit you with steroids.
Okay.
and they hit you with antibiotics. And I mean, it's not like they don't not see it coming. You know, the way my doctor explains it to me is, the building you're in, the room you're in, we've been handling this for 60 years. And we have more drugs and more medications, and if they don't work, we have more drugs and more medications. And that's why, and it's when I say lucky, is you're lucky to be in the hospital you were in with the doctors you had,
Sure.
getting the care you received, because the places that I and Kelvin both went to are probably top 10, if not in the state, top 15 in the country. This is where it all went down. And that these are the doctors that are now going around the rest of the country, for the most part, doing transplants of hearts, livers, lungs, kidneys, and in the success rate is into the high 80s and low 90s on these things. And that now, I mean, Kelvin's been here close to 14 years, 15 years after getting the transplant, and he's living a life like it never happened. And I know we got to walk him down this path, and I know he wrote the book, and I know he's got to relive these memories, and you walk away feeling excellent about it. And and when you see people and you go, oh, I had a heart transplant, and they go, oh, I'm sorry, and you go, sorry, it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I'm getting back into a life that I should have been living. I have a second chance at things that I should be grateful for, and I am. And like, I'm only in my third year, and I mean, everything is still aware and awake to me. And last week I got catheterized for my third birthday. You still get catheterized every other year?
Every other year.
Every other year. See, so this is, we have things in common. I had my second one on my third year. And everything went well. There's, my report is great. I'm on very low meds, and I'm getting back into what I had before, all this started. And I want to move forward, but just getting from the darkness of being sick into the present of getting transplanted, into the future of living with it, is one of the great, personal stories that people can have.
Let's talk about this. A couple of things I'm going to ask you. When you got your new heart, you mentioned at some point in your book, there's two things we'll talk about. Fresh air, how getting out of the hospital and breathing fresh air was something quite fantastic. Quite the novel thing at the time. Also, the idea, you mentioned that during one of your follow-ups, you ended up having the police see us. You found out you had an unpaid ticket. You had an unpaid ticket. That the police see us, pulled you over, and
I had to figure out what word was that. Oh, policia. Okay.
Los federales pulled you over and made you.
Right.
Let's talk about that.
So 13 days, I think I walked out. 13 days, I think it was time, it was finally time to go. Which that's a whole nother scary thing, because here you go, you got a gazillion drips behind you, and now you're going to finally walk out with no drips, no tubes, no nothing. I'm still a buck 63, 65. I'm still, frail, but you're ready, but there's still, like, you're still really apprehensive about leaving, because you're leaving that comfort area. Whereas, like Greg talked, like these are your people. These are the people that have, if you fall down, they're going to pick you up. If something's too high, they're going to bring it down, and all of that. So when we're walking downstairs, and I'm ready to go outside. I go outside like it was nothing. Like, I'm outside. Whoa. And I go back inside. So my wife is like, "What's the matter?" I'm like, that's just too much air. She's like, "It's too much air." I'm like, "Yeah, it was just overwhelming." Because I guess I went out and I breathed after 3 months, and it was just too overwhelming. It's almost like you just gotta, if you're taking a drink of water, you don't want to just drink it really, really fast. You just gotta sip it and I had to go back. So that was overwhelming, and like I spoke in the book, getting in the back of my truck to go across the George Washington Bridge, that same bridge that the wife and we would stand near the elevator. And I remember a patient coming and his tongue was hanging out of his mouth. He had all these drips. He literally looked like someone that had just probably had a heart transplant. And I was like, babe, please, can they just put my tongue in my mouth? That looks that looks crazy to me. We're looking at the George Washington Bridge, and I'm dreaming about going back across there. So now I'm going back across the George Washington Bridge. I'm tears,
This is like
coming down my face.
reversing. It's like reverse anxiety. You are happy to go across the UW.
Yeah. And my daughter's laughing. She's like, look at you, you're crying. I'm like, hey, you'd have no idea. You really have no idea. So, so that's just that was just a great moment. And now I knew that the work was to begin. And Greg, as you know, those biopsies, I know that they still had to happen, that going in, and it's just, that, but here I am, and I have a chance to regain my life. I have a chance to regain my life, and I'd sign up for that again if this ever happened. Yeah.
The only difference between your release and my release was COVID was going on.
Jesus.
And you couldn't really get visitors. Everybody was masked up. You couldn't even see the faces of the nurses. You couldn't see a lot of things. And my first LVAD pump was at a point where it was November of 2019, and they hadn't figured out or named what COVID even was.
Wow.
And a year later, when I had my transplant, COVID was still going on with all the protocols. And you really couldn't have visitors. You really, there was a lot of apprehension about a lot of things. And when I got released, it was via ambulance. I was ambulatory, even though I was able to walk and do everything. That they were literally sending me by ambulance because I was still fragile, but I was able to, walk. And it was funny. The one thing that I learned is never, ever fall down in a hospital. They won't let you out.
Really?
Yeah, especially if you get they always put up little.
Well, you almost become like a permanent prisoner.
And this is what I was going to say before about fresh air. The joke that I came up with. What was the difference between a hospital and prison? And the answer is fresh air. Yeah, you don't get fresh air in a hospital, and at least in a prison, you get an hour a day. And it was one of the things that when I was in, for the time that I was in, a couple of weeks at a time, that being denied fresh air was something that was always on my mind. And the one other thing, we were talking before about the bells and whistles, is they don't issue earplugs. There isn't one set of earplugs in a hospital. And that would have made the days and weeks seem a lot more, dealable. I don't even know if that's a word, but easier to deal with, because when these bells and whistles go off for whether it's your IV drip or your something is loose or something changed, and it's going on for hours. I got to a point where I was testing my sense of pitch by figuring out what all the notes were of all the bells. And that's my 2 cents was that you can't, like, you couldn't shut off the rings, the bells and the dings, especially in the middle of the night. And, when one nurse is watching a bunch of rooms in the middle of the night, sometimes it's someone's more important than your little bell and whistle. And that's just my 2 seconds. But just moving along, this is one thing that we haven't talked about, Kelvin, is after the transplant, and you're a decade and a half out of it. What's it like? What is it that's going on that you're leading this life of post transplant success? And I know that's not in the book, and that's one of the things I want to hear about is how's your diet, how's your exercise, you look great.
Thank you.
You look great. I don't know when the book was published, but you look as good or better than the book.
That was 2010. I think the book was 2010. Yeah. So there was a lot of Starbucks, a lot of Dunkin' Donuts when I was writing. Yeah, you may write like 100,000 words, and then eventually it's going to get cut down to about 65,000. But so I want to. What's really pressing is I remember the doctor saying, like, look, live your life. Let us worry about everything else. Live your life. Let us worry about everything else. Right? You're going to probably get little things here and there. We're going to tweak medicines, right? Your heart's going to probably be the last thing standing. There's going to be things that come down that, trust me, but your heart is probably going to be the last thing standing. I didn't really remember that until I want to share this, and we'll go backwards. My PSA went up last year.
Okay.
And that was scary because they, obviously, prostate.
Explain to the
Just
viewers what the PSA
Before
actually
he
stands for.
explains it, I definitely want to ask a question.
Sure.
Did you see it on your My Chart, or did they bring it up to you?
Brought it up to me because there were symptoms going. There were symptoms as far as, as far as having a problem like urinating. And, so I went to a urologist, and we started that whole thing, PSA, pro something serum antigen. Can't remember the actual acronym.
It's a protein. Yeah. Right. It's a protein.
Something like that.
It's in My Chart. I saw it last week.
Okay. So now, of course, if you go 0 to 10, 0 being the best, 10 being the, way something's got to happen. So when I got a hold, it ended up being a 4, and the doctor said, well, this could be this, it could be that. And then he wanted to get it biopsied. So now, Greg, we know what the whole biopsy thing is, right? We're fearful of biopsies, right? So now this biopsy is different.
Okay.
This biopsy is like a biopsy. This is a whole nother type of biopsy. This actually through your rectum to go into the prostate. I was blown away, but that's how you get the sure, let's say, number, right? And they're going to take 12 samples. So that same, go in, numb it, take 12 samples. Yeah, it should make it clean. Yeah. So come to find out, let's say, actually it was 2 Septembers ago. We finally did it. It was medieval. And
you don't get medieval on your ass.
Totally medieval.
All fiction.
But 3 samples of 12 were cancerous. So they do a thing to where they say
9 were benign and 3 were was it malignant?
Whichever the one that's
mal in Spanish would be bad.
Bad.
Mal,
Okay.
Malignant, bad. Benign.
Malignant. Okay. Right. So they're saying because prostate cancer is slow moving, right? It doesn't move in months. Sometimes it doesn't move in months. Usually it'll move in years. So I'm like, okay, I know I'm immunosuppressed. So let's say that's September. Come November, I get another PSA, and I think it's over 5. So now it's still going. All right. We do another one, and it's getting closer to 9, I think, in March. And then that's when I left the same situation, I left Rockland County and I went down into the city where they do no more numbers. And I saw a man, and then we went through a whole lot of things. And he said, you know what? Don't know why it's moving this fast, but in my professional opinion, you need to just get it out. You need to just get it out. And did another biopsy. That was 6 out of 12. So I'm like, good.
All these biopsies are going up your.
So I did two. I did two.
Okay.
I did two. One in September, and I think one in March. Right. The first one said 3 out of 12. The second one said 6 out of 12. Right. So I was
And
ready.
they were
He was like, hey.
medicating along the way and trying to reduce the size and
The first one, because you don't know what you're up against. You know, you're just super tense. The second one, dare I say, was better.
Super tense.
You know, right.
I'm going to be calling my team about my result on my PSA because no one said nothing.
No. And the fact that they didn't say anything is probably a good thing, Greg. You know,
no, I hear you, but now I'm listening to you. So,
sure.
you
Well,
know,
and that's why we, especially men, we need to talk about this.
no, I understand.
Right.
I just want to ask you as a side note, did you become like, I'm not going to use this word, but deep into your my chart and all the tests and all the numbers and they tell you not to look at it and they tell you not to worry and like you read your doctor's notes and you read your after
They tell you not to look at it because I was always told.
It's not that they tell you not to.
Everything.
It's what Kelvin said. Go lead your life and we'll worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because every now and then, like, okay, here's a personal question. So when you get all these blood tests, do you watch your white blood cell count?
I listen to what I listen to what they say, and I glance at it or whatever, but I don't really worry about
whether
it.
you're high or you're low. It's not even relevant. It doesn't matter because if it was an issue, they would tell you.
There you go. There you go.
And that's what I deal with. And they look at me and they go, because I'm looking at the numbers and I'm reading the numbers and these doctors, because you see other doctors and especially the trainees and the assistants and the techs. And they said, well, the doctors really just go by the numbers. And you start looking at your numbers and like, well, this number is always really low and this number is always in the middle and this number always seems high. And they're looking at me and they're going, you know, Mr. Weiss, your cholesterol, blah, 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 blah. And I'm going, well, you know, does diet change that? And they go, well, you know, it's all subjective. I said, so if it's at that number, I guess I'm okay. It's not double. It's not half. I wish it was half, but I don't have this luck of genetic low cholesterol.
Sure. All right. I'm going to interrupt you, Greg. So this is our last question. So, Kelvin, what would you tell men in particular out there if they feel like anything is slightly off as far as shortness of breath or just breathing and just anything is slightly off? I don't care what it is, but if as far as it pertains to the heart, what would you tell them out there?
Go get checked. Go get checked because it doesn't have to be a death sentence. It doesn't have to be a death sentence. But if you get too far behind something, right? Get too far behind anything really, then that could really, really be a major problem for you. Go get checked. What is it really? What it's going to be a copay for some, and guess what? The people that don't have insurance, it's worth whatever money that is to go get it checked out. Because clearly you can continue to live a life if you get ahead of it. And hey, it doesn't have to be a death sentence. Is we as men, I know that most of us are programmed to just ride it out. Things will get better. Go get checked. Go get checked. I'm one of those.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. It's
I would trust me one of those people. Now, I also want you to tell the police story quickly.
The police story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
so
it's such a very
happened.
Unique thing that he actually, what I read in the book.
It shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, it's look. I was let's say it was at May, something like May 3rd. I came home, right? So now July, I'm about to take my first ride, driving and all, down to get a checkup, to go get a checkup. My truck, I had cleaned it the day before. Wow, I'm feeling good. I can drive now. And going down the Palisades, I get pulled over. And I didn't think I was speeding. I thought I was within range of everyone else. Pulls me over, and it's license registration. I said, no problem, officer. I said, he said, where are you off to? I said, I'm actually off to Columbia Presbyterian. I just had a heart transplant. All of my papers and everything was right beside me, because you got a pamphlet that you got to take to your team. I said, it's all right there. He said, okay. He said, came back. He said, yeah. Did you know you had a ticket back in 1990s? I said, I did not. It's all right. All right. I'm going to ask you to step out of the car. I said, okay, no problem. Again, I just had a heart transplant. Things are still healing, officer. It's like, so, I just want you to know that I'm getting out. And he said, oh, hands behind you. I said again, I just had a heart transplant. Literally, things are sewn together and it's still healing. Officer, you willing to take this on? He said, yeah. So he was a nice guy, but he was still CK to me. But,
Casual dick cop.
Come to find out,
CDC.
huh?
CDC, casual dick cop.
So come to find out, it was a parking ticket from who knows how long ago. We ran around the corner, paid it, but yes, my hands were behind my back. I went because I didn't want anything to break in here, and brought me back to my truck. I went to my appointment, albeit a bit late, but
You made it.
I made it, and just like Greg will tell you, I look at things differently because I literally stared death in the face. So what is this to me?
Sure.
What is this to me? This is he's an a-hole, but guess what? Paid the ticket. It's probably my ticket, but
You got to keep moving on and moving on, and even at good news, bad news, you carry that even tempo.
Well, you don't want to stress yourself, especially after you had your whole chest cracked open, and they replaced it with some young man's heart. How old's the guy? How old you guys?
21-year-old from Ohio, my angel. Yes.
What was his nationality?
That they don't tell you.
They don't tell you.
It's time for me to write another letter because, I wrote a letter early on.
I was going to ask you about this too. So you haven't met, you haven't been in contact.
It's time to do another letter. It's time because at that time they were probably mourning, and they probably, really.
You should follow what nationality, because see if you can do a 23andMe to find out.
It doesn't work that way. I'm going to officially tell you this.
Curious to know.
I'm going to officially tell you.
Let's say the kid was Irish. And then,
you may have a second organ, but you don't have double the chromosomes.
let's say all of a sudden your DNA changed. Like all of a sudden, let's get this kid's an Irish kid from Ohio, skateboarder.
It won't show up.
You think that one morning he'll be able to wake up skateboarding?
Right, like I just got this real strong affinity. I love skateboarding.
He's like, Mom, tells his wife, can you make some what's a good Irish meal?
I have to look into
corned beef and cabbage.
I have to look into it. See if I was a skateboarder.
Kelvin Smith, thank you very much for being on our podcast.
Thank you, Kelvin. Once again, author of The Unlikely Candidate, the journey of a heart transplant patient. Look at that. Look at the before and after.
Available on Amazon. They're looking for the subject.
Amazon. Yep.
We're gonna pick this up again soon, maybe after football season, and there's so much to talk about between your experience, what's going on here, and you'll keep us in touch if you write that letter.
I will.
I showed Anthony that when we were starting this show, that I had pulled out a letter from the mother of my donor, and I had realized it had been about 7 months since I sent a letter, and I did. And I reached out with all my information, and in New York State, because my donor's in New York, but you dealt with the network. You don't even know if the letter is going to go out. They don't even update you.
Right.
So it may be 3-4 months before she even gets this letter.
Right.
So I'm but in any event, you're going to feel better when you do it. And it was one of the things that I said to Anthony was I've already spent 2.5 years trying to forget this, but I'm not going to forget, who my donor was. I'm not going to forget. And I pull out the letter and there's a picture and I know who she is because when you got your gift and you didn't, even if you got a letter from your donor family, there wasn't really the technology today.
No.
And when I found out about 6 months to a year after, I mean, it was minutes before I actually knew who these people were. And I haven't crossed the line. I followed the rules. I'm sticking with the New York Donor Network, which is incredible.
Sure.
And then a Facebook group started of the people in my transplant history from the hospital, and there's like 40 people in it. And I saw pictures of donors who got donors before me, and I decided that I'm going to reach out.
Right.
I have another family. This is what I know.
All right, everyone, let's say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Kelvin has to run.
See you next week.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank
Thanks,
you very
Greg.
much, and thanks,
Thanks,
Kelvin. I
and the
appreciate
recording.
you for taking more time.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks,
Take
man.
care.